In this video, I'm gonna do a book recommendation tag with these 20 books. So if you guys wanna see some of my favorite books that I have read this year, last year, all the years, make sure you guys watch and subscribe. I haven't done a book recommendation tag in a while, and I feel like this would be fun. I did do a mid-year wrap-up on my podcast if you guys wanna go listen to that. But let's get into all 20 of these books, and I hope you guys enjoy. I did a book recommendation tag video last year, and it was really fun, but I feel like now I have even more recommendations for you guys because I've read so many more books. I read 170 books last year, and I've read like 83 books this year. So there's gonna be a lot of good ones. I have 20 questions here, and the first question is a book you tell people is your favorite. I feel like you guys already know what this book is. It is this book. I love Magnolia Park so much, and honestly the whole series is just so special to me, but I think what I like most about this, I don't know if I would even say this book is my favorite. I feel like I'd have to say like the whole series, and I'm gonna try not to like double up on any of these questions. There's one other question that like does double up, but all the other ones have like different books, because honestly this could fit into so many different categories, but this series to me is like almost a study of being human, or at least that's what it feels like. Like it doesn't even feel like a romance. I mean it does, but like it feels like so much more than that. I feel like if you go into this book recognizing that you're just gonna be reading about human people that could be like your friends, people that you know, like it gives you so much empathy for people in the world, for people who have experiences that you know nothing about. I love this book so much. Or just this series in general. I will say like the first two books, I think I rated 4.5 out of 5 stars, and then all the other books, 5 stars, the last book, 6 stars. Like I love this series, and the writing is so unique. The way that she writes is literally poetic. I think that if you love the series, then like, I mean, we're on the same playing field here, but if you aren't obsessed with it, get to Long Way Home. I think that's the third book in the series, because she alludes to so much in book 1 and 2, and she's like really telling you about the characters, but like when you get to book 3, that's when like she just like unveils so much, and you just like absolutely become obsessed with all the characters and everything that they go through. I also think you have to recognize that these characters are flawed, and that's like okay. And I almost wish that these books were not put into the romance section, and there's like another category, not even contemporary fiction, because it doesn't really feel like that. It just feels like a book on its own. Like it feels very unique. So I love this series, so good. Definitely a book I would tell people is my favorite. A book that is my guilty pleasure is definitely Luca by Gray Huffington. This is a book that I did not think that I would enjoy, mostly because it is so outside of my element. I have told so many people to read this book because I loved it so much. I think what I liked most about this was the character was so strong, and it was my first like real introduction into like urban romance, and definitely want to read more urban romance. And if you like dark romance, the vibes are similar. Not the same, but they are similar. And I ended up buying the entire series after reading this book. This book is about a guy who is, I can't even say too much, but he is just getting out of like a really hard situation, and he meets someone who really knocks him off his feet, and it was kind of like an instant draw to her. And if you like the faded like trope where it seems like two characters are kind of faded, you will definitely like this. He's very much a protector, like he's like touch her and you die, and is like actually serious about it. I love this. I also think that I love really strong characters, and he is such a strong character. Definitely my guilty pleasure, because again, it's so outside of my like realm of what I normally read. Like literally at one point in this book, I think he tells her to like shut up, and I was just like, okay, like okay, shut up. Like I just really like this. And then another question is a book everyone loved but you didn't. Definitely would have to be Icebreaker. I think I went into this with such high expectations because I just like knew so many people love this book. I love the first half of it, but the last half of it I just couldn't get into, and I think it's because the spice was so much. I feel like it overtook the story. Also, the book is pretty long. It's like taller, and it's 414 pages, and literally the last half of the book is just them like hooking up. It definitely gives like college vibes because they hook up a ton, but I could have definitely like did without a lot of that. I think I ended up rating this 2 stars, which I know feels criminal to some people because so many people love this book. But for me, I just couldn't get into it. At least the last half. If the first half had continued in the way that it did, I feel like I would have liked it more. A book that I read the fastest, it was definitely Fourth Wing. I read this in literally 24 hours, and this is obviously outside of my like typical genre. This is 518 pages, and I finished it in literally 24 hours. It is also much taller than your average book. You can see like the height difference there. I ended up reading it so fast. I think I liked it because there is a wild amount of dialogue in this book. So if you're not like a big fantasy reader, but you do like books with tons of dialogue to like feel like you're actually listening in on characters like talking, you will enjoy this book. This book is about a girl who is trying to be a dragon rider, and she is trying because her mom is pretty much like, even though you trained your entire life to have this other career, I'm going to make you ride dragons. And so she's like, I literally haven't trained for this at all. I kind of have like a, you know, health issues and stuff that's kind of gonna make it hard for me, but she's so resilient, and I think that's what I love most about this book. A book that I feel deserves more hype is definitely Fly With Me by Andy Burke. This is a sapphic romance that is so cute. I feel like this deserves more hype because, again, you guys know I'm a dialogue girly and I love books with dialogue, and this has so much of it, but the banter is so funny. And I feel like I don't hear a lot of people talk about this book. Her newest release comes out in September, and it's already on my like top list of books to pick up. This is about a girl who gets on a plane, and while she's on the plane, someone ends up starting to choke, and I think she works in like a hospital, so she ends up like saving his life. And the pilot, she's like, oh my God, thank you so much for saving this person's life. And it ends up like going viral on the internet, like the pilot talking to her and like the guy who's choking, and everyone's like, ooh, are they gonna be a thing? So then they end up fake dating just so that she can like potentially get a promotion, because her like airline really likes all the hype that is like happening around this story. And then of course, as they're fake dating, like they just start to have some feelings for each other. But you get to also learn so much about their personal lives. They go through a lot. They've both been through a lot. They're working through a lot. And so both of them have like family issues that are really hard, and they also are not really good at like trusting people, and so you get to see them kind of break down their walls with that. So read this if you haven't. It's one of my favorites. I really love this. Rated this one 4 stars, and it's also pretty, like this one's 367 pages, which I don't think is necessarily long, but it's definitely longer for me when I'm reading a book by a new author to me. I've never read anything from Andy Burke. Another question is, what is a book that is becoming a movie or a TV show? Before I Let Go was a 5-star read for me. Will forever be a book that I'm obsessed with, and this is turning into, I'm pretty sure, a TV show. If you want to see like all the details on it, you could head over to Kenny Ryan's Instagram, but I'm pretty sure it's turning into a TV show. Love it so much, and this is going to be such a great like show or movie. It's about a girl who gets divorced to this guy, but that you can tell like they still have lingering love for each other, but they get divorced because something happens that they just can't get over. But in this book, they kind of are starting to have feelings for each other, but they've been divorced for like a few years. They're co-parenting together. They have like co-ownership of a business, which is like very admirable of them, but also it's hard. So you see how they co-parent, you see one of them start dating and the other one kind of get like a little bit jealous. Like you get to see all the things in this story, and it feels very realistic, but the thing that pulled them apart, it also is very realistic as well. And it will be such a good movie. And then a book that you reread the most is definitely Love in Other Words. I read this book every single year. This is a special edition copy. I love this book. Macy and Elliot are literally the cutest book couple ever. This is also a book that I recommend always to new readers because it's so heartwarming. Like it'll give you the feelings of like when you first fell in love and like the ooey gooey like happy feelings. This is definitely one of my favorites, and it is a friends to lovers story. They go every summer to like hang out with each other, and they rekindle their love as they are what am I doing? They're seeing each other in the summers, but they're rekindling like their feelings for each other every single year that they get together. And then something pulls them apart when they get older. They start dating when they're younger, and yeah, it's just, it's very, very good. And the thing that pulls them apart is also very, very, very sad. So it is very realistic, but the whole time you're just like, what? Like, their love is so perfect. Like, every summer they get together, it's like so beautiful. Like, how did they get like pulled apart from each other? And then when you learn what it is, it's like, oh, okay, like I get it. And so it is such a good second chance friend still lover story. A book from a genre that I don't typically read is definitely Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Lauren Roberts is a newer author to me. I don't normally read fantasy, and I actually picked this up because so many people said that this would be a great fantasy for someone who loves romance, and it is a romantasy. But I don't know what it was. I think that this story to me, I just couldn't really get into. Maybe because it's so similar to other stories that I've heard. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't like get into the feeling. And maybe because I expected it to be so much of a romance and I wasn't really like caring about the fantasy part of it. And the fantasy definitely overtook a lot of the story. Maybe that was part of it. I don't know. I had very, very, very high expectations for this. Honestly, I thought that this story, I would enjoy this more than Fourth Wing, and I definitely did not. I think I rated this one 3.5 out of 5 stars, and that is like not like bad, but it's definitely not amazing when I expect it to be like a 5-star read. And a book that deserves all the hype that it gets is definitely Funny Story by Emily Henry, but I really think any of her books that are hyped up like deserve all the hype that they get. Like Happy Place, what's the other one that I really liked? I feel like it just came out not that long ago. Oh, Beach Read, like it came out like 2 years ago. Deserves all the hype. Her books are so good because they touch on so many topics outside of the romance. Like, you really get to see the characters live a full-fledged life. They go through so much, and I feel like it's so easy to resonate with them as well. Like this book in particular, the girl, she's engaged, and while she's engaged, the guy she's engaged to is like, hey, you know what? Actually, I'm in love with my like best friend, and she and I are gonna be together, so you need to move out of this house in a week. And the whole time as you're reading it, you're like, huh? Like, how is that even, like, how rude? Like, but also, how is that even possible that you would, like, do that to someone? And so you get to see the main character who has relied really on her fiance for a lot of things in her relationship. You get to see her learn to stand on her own 2 feet. She ends up moving in with this guy who was also the boyfriend of the best friend that her ex-fiance got with. It's very confusing, but when you read the story, it's definitely not. And I think that reading this story made me feel very like validated in how hard it can be to like stand on your own, or just to like do things that are hard, but also build friendships, to start new careers, like all of those things. And I feel like Emily Henry always touches on those topics so, so well. And another book is a book that I usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation, and it is always Only for the Weak by Natasha Bishop. This book is so good. It is less than 300 pages. It's only 218 pages. It is so short, and I feel like that is perfect for new readers. Anytime someone wants a recommendation, especially by a Black author, I always recommend this one. It's about a girl. She ends up going to Tulum because her sister is getting married, and her sister is getting married to her ex-boyfriend. Yes, I know it's actually wild, but you will fly through this book because her sister honestly is insufferable. Her family is insufferable. She has to deal with so many mishaps while she's on this trip, but then she starts having feelings for her ex-boyfriend, who is now her sister's fiance. She starts having feelings for his best friend, and she's like, well, I don't know if I want to have feelings for him or like share that I have feelings for him, because I don't want anyone to like think that I'm trying to start drama at this wedding. And there are just so many mishaps in this story that will make you laugh. Like, it is a very, very funny but also very short read, which I feel like is great for new readers. And a book that has my favorite characters. Now, this is the only book that kind of overlaps because I already shared this, but it is Into the Dark by Jessa Hastings. And the reason it kind of overlaps is because obviously Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings is in the same series, and I already shared that as like the first question, but I just could not pick anything else because these characters feel so real to me. The reason I picked this book and not like Magnolia Parks or A Long Way Home is because by the time you get to this book, the characters have developed so much. They have like grown into these characters that you like learn to love. They are just so different than in that first book. And I really want to read this series again because I feel like their development and like how much they grow is just so like wild whenever you really think about all that they've been through. And so I kind of want to go back to the first book so I can read through and like remember all the stuff that they go through. And like this is what I mean by I feel like this is a study of being human, because you see why like their relationships with their friends, with their family, with each other doesn't feel very healthy in the first few books, and it's literally because they're going through it. Like they've been through a lot of things, but you don't learn that until Long Way Home, until this book, until The Great Undoing. You don't see how much they have been through and how they're trying to navigate it and how hard it is. And again, I think that's just such a beautiful representation of like what it is to be human, because like when we go to the grocery store, we don't know what people are going through or what has happened in their life, and maybe they're mean or just like not the best to be around. Maybe they're kind of like unhealthy, you know, have unhealthy like coping mechanisms or communication with their family members or friends, but we don't know why they do that. And I feel like this book is like such a perfect example of that. So anyway, let me get off my high horse about this book because you guys know that I'm obsessed with it. But a book that I wish I could live in is definitely Love You Always by Lauren Lacey. These are some of my favorite characters as well. I almost picked this, but I was like, I can't pick this for my favorite characters when I love the characters in Magnolia Park's universe more than them. So these I definitely would say would be a book that I wish I could live in, because the town is so cute. Like everyone knows everyone, and it is just like Beverly Mills feels like that Hallmark movie type of like town, but also the people and the experiences that they have are like so cute. I definitely, you can see, have read this book. I had all the feelings while reading this book, and I rated this 4.5 out of 5 stars and immediately bought the next 2 books in this series. I also think that this book is not hyped up enough. I think that there's only like a few hundred reviews on Goodreads, and this book, like the characters are, they're something else. They start having a relationship when they're really, really young. So you get to see how like unhealthy they are as like partners when they're young, but it's a friends to lovers story. So as they get older, they do mature, but something pulls them apart, and later on, years later, like they definitely still have feelings for each other, but they're thinking like, should we get back together? Do we need to? Like we were so unhealthy with each other back then. And you see their life, I think, through like 30 years, like a span of 30 years. And I cannot wait to read the books of the sisters to this main character. It is just a really good, also very underrated series, but also I would love to live in that town. A book you thought you would hate but ended up loving is definitely Carrie Soto Is Back. I actually started this on audiobook, and I love audiobooks, but a lot of the books that I feel like I'm going to give like 5 stars, 4.5 out of 5 stars, I usually like to read in a physical form, because there's something about words to me that is like so special, and reading it versus hearing it, it just does something different to me. So if I'm listening to a book on audiobook, even tandem reading sometimes, but like if I'm listening to a book on audiobook, usually I think in my head like this book is gonna be like 3.5, 3 stars, like it's gonna be fine, but I'm not gonna be like obsessed with it. And there's books like that, and that is like not bad. Like I feel like there's also shows like that, and we don't like say anything about it. Like if you just turn something on to turn it on, like it's not gonna win any awards, like it's not gonna get any Emmys or whatever, but like you're still enjoying it. That's kind of how I feel about the books. But this one, I went into it with an audiobook expecting it to just be like mid, it was gonna be fine. It's about a girl playing tennis, so I'm like, okay, whatever. Love this book. 4.5 out of 5 stars. Love this book. And I've read, I think this is my 5th book of Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this is my favorite book of hers. And I think it's because the main character is so like, I don't care what you think. Like, I don't bend and break to like what you say about me. She's such a strong, resilient character, and in the entire book, she is trying to make sure that someone doesn't take her title, but she's like in retirement, so she has to come out of retirement to try to make this happen, and it's definitely like a hard thing to do. Like she's like having an uphill battle because everyone's like, well, she's old, this isn't possible. And you see how hard she works. You see how badly people talk about her and how she just lets it like fall off her shoulders. And I feel like I was really inspired by reading about her character, and I felt like she was real. Like I had to look up like, is Carrie Soto like a real character? Because it felt like a memoir. So if you like reading memoirs, and even if you don't like reading memoirs, like I really think that you should pick up this book. I feel like it's very, very good. And it's one of her like books that I feel like I don't hear a lot of people talk about. I usually hear people talk about Daisy Jones and the Six or The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I love that one even more. A book that that made me cry is definitely Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I have a hot take. I feel like when everyone read It Ends With Us, it was a lot of people's first introduction into getting like back into reading in like 2020-ish. And so many people love It Ends With Us, and that was actually the only book of hers that I wasn't obsessed with. I liked Hopeless so much better. I liked this book so much better. This book made me cry, like literally just boohoo tears. And this is the book that I usually recommend to people if they want a book by Colleen Hoover. This is about a girl who, I guess I can just read the back so I don't like spoil anything. It says, young mother fights to earn a place in her child's life, but is there room for her? So I'll leave it at that because I don't want to like spoil anything, but it is such a good story. Will definitely tug at your heartstrings, and it's also a romance as well. But I feel like a lot of people read It Ends With Us and they're like, oh my god, it's her best book ever. And it's like, it's really... On the scale of like best books of hers, I would not put that at the top. And I think it's just like got so hyped up because so many people read that book for the first time. Kind of like The Housemaid. Like Freida McFadden's book, The Housemaid, I feel like is not her best work, but I think it's one of the books that really got like people obsessed with her writing. I think Never Lie is better than that one. I think The Teacher is better than that one. I think she has other books that are better than the Housemaid series, but I don't know. That's neither here nor there. A book that I think could, oh, well, that's the next question. A book that I wish I could read for the first time is definitely They Are Vicious Games by Joelle Wellington. This is such a unique story. If you like the show Squid Games, you will be obsessed. Actually obsessed with this story. It's very similar to Squid Games. The characters have to go through these trials and games because they are trying to like win this huge prize that could like change just the trajectory of their entire life. Like it could make them go from being like very, very poor to being like super rich and popular, and or if they're already rich and popular, it can make them like 10 times more rich and popular. So the book is very similar to Squid Games. It's not like a fantasy. It's definitely like they are regular people who are going through this thing. So I'd say like more dystopian. And so it's hard for me to recommend because I feel like people who read fantasy, they're like expecting a fantasy and it's not that. But people who read romance, they're not really looking for this type of book. So it is young adult, so I think that that's a good category to keep it in. But I think that so many people would love it, whether you're a young adult or not. A book that I think could cure any reading slump is any book by Octavia Grant. I've read 2 of her books already. I finished them in one sitting. They are always wild. They definitely give thriller vibes, but they also have like some kind of romance usually in them as well. If you've seen Obsessed by Beyonce, like the movie, a lot of her books give that vibe and they're so enjoyable. So definitely pick up one of her books if you haven't already. A book that I think everyone needs to read is this book by, I think it's this one. No, not that one. Just kidding. I mixed these two up. Is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. And the reason I think that everyone should read this book is because Kennedy Ryan, she is just such a powerful writer, but this book in particular talks so much about self-love, and I've never read any author, I've never read about any author writing about self-love and how important it is even in like romantic relationships. And this character, she is getting out of a really like terrible relationship and is learning how to like figure out life on her own. And there's someone else who comes into her life and is like, hey, like kind of interested. But she's like, I'm also interested, but I'm also trying to like solo date myself. I'm trying to love myself. I'm trying to not rely on other people. I'm trying to rely on myself. And that is such an important thing. I feel like so often in romances we can be like, oh, like, you know, she needs to find this like billionaire to take care of her, or she needs to like find the love of her life so that she can like be happy. And it's like, this book definitely is a beautiful romance, but also it is so like, it's such an important message about how you don't need someone else to make you happy. That person can be a great addition, but they don't have to be like your entire like reason for existing. And such a beautiful story about self-love, and I think that everyone should read that. Even if you don't normally read romance, I feel like it's a great book. And it also talks so much about the book All About Love by Bell Hooks, and it kind of is like interweaved in the story as well. A book that I think would be an amazing movie is this one right here, Curvy Girl Summer. And I think it would be an amazing movie because the banter would be hilarious. This is about a girl who she really struggles to like deal with her family. They're always pressuring her to be like dating someone and like, you know, settle down. And she's like, you know what? I will start dating people, but I'm gonna do it on my own time. And she decides to do like some online dating. She meets up with these guys. There are tons of mishaps. And while she's meeting up with the guys at the bar, like on different date nights, the bartender, he's like, hey, why don't I like hang out with you every single time you have a date, so that way you can like be safe, and then they kind of start having feelings for each other. So it'll be such a great movie because I feel like the dating mishaps would be really funny to watch, and I also feel like the romance would be really cute because their banter is really good. If you like Abby Jimenez's writing, you will be obsessed with Danielle Allen's writing, especially this book. A book that I wish everyone would give a shot, even if it's out of their comfort zone, is really any book by Britney Cherry. Like, if you haven't read anything from Britney Cherry, definitely pick up one of her books. I try to read one of her books every single month. But this book I think is great because it's a great romance. There's so many like beautiful moments in this story, but it also talks about depression, it talks about grief, talks about like real life things. So if you normally read like fiction, you don't read romance, I feel like this is a good book for that as well. But definitely just pick up something of hers. Like, she is such an underrated author to me. And a book that I will never forget is Fast by Millie Bellazar. This is the 20th question, and I think that this book is unforgettable to me because like, I just don't understand how this author, one, isn't hyped up enough. Like, I feel like a lot of people don't know about her writing, but how the main character can go through so much and still be so resilient. Like, she came out on the other side, and you get to see her life from age, I think 8 through like 30, 35. And she falls in love with the boy next door, but she's going through really hard things in her life. And you see her try to work through that trauma as she grows up, and she ends up getting older, and she's like trying to navigate life after all these traumatic events. And she also gets reconnected with her neighbor, who is like the next door neighbor that she like always had feelings for. And it is just so sweet. Like, I think about this book often. I think about how it needs to be hyped up more, but I also think about how it's such a unique story. It's so powerful. So definitely pick this one up if you guys haven't. And that is all of the 20 books that are in this book recommendation tag. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And make sure you guys are subscribed if you haven't already. Make sure you guys go listen to my mid-year wrap up on my podcast, and go over to TikTok and Instagram just to see more bookish like videos. I share so many bookish videos like every single day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.